Welcome to Real Smart, the real estate podcast you've been waiting for. I'm Spencer Kallick, a real estate and land use attorney at Matkins. On this show, I sit down with some of the most dynamic and accomplished voices in real estate to explore trends shaping the industry and uncover what truly sets great leaders apart. Today, we're joined by Bryan Eck, Executive Director of Land Use and Planning for USC Real Estate and Asset Management, where he oversees the short and long-term planning for how USC's campus grows and evolves. Before joining USC, Bryan spent more than a decade as a city planner in Los Angeles and West Hollywood, leading long-range planning efforts and major initiatives like the Downtown Community Plans and DTLA 2040 vision for the city's core. He also spearheaded the City of West Hollywood's Sunset Arts and Advertising program that reinvented signage on the Sunset Strip. At his core, Bryan is a planner who combines his expertise with genuine passion, making this a great episode for Angelenos who love LA and for the next generation of urban planners. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I kind of asked you, so you kind of had to be here. No, I guess you could have chosen, but I really do appreciate you joining. You have a really unique perspective, having been both in the public sector, in the kind of pseudo-private sector, now at USC, I also just think you're a really smart guy, so I'm glad that you could be here with us today. I'm going to start kind of at the top. How did you get into planning? How did you decide to become a planner, and how does being a planner inform your vision of what you do at USC?
Yeah. So I've always had an interest in cities and how they operate and why they are. So officially I got my start through the discipline of geography. That was,
You like a map on the wall when you were a little kid and you loved like figuring out capitals and things like that?
Believe it or not, yes.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. Some of my favorite books, the Atlas and the Almanac were sort of ongoing gifts I would seek every year. Got to plan trips as a kid. And so when you have a personality type like mine, learning about the world only takes you so far. Wanting to have a stake in it is what led me to urban planning. So, wanted to study planning. So got a degree in city and regional planning from Cal Poly, and then just ran from there.
I love it.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of experience in the city of LA, and you've seen the city of LA evolve over time. How would you describe the city of LA today from an urban planning perspective?
Yeah, I mean, at this current moment, I think it is one of response. There have been a series of crises and disruptions that have forced the city to sort of set aside maybe a long-term view to address some of the more short-term concerns, whether that's disruptions from the pandemic, wildfires, or even things that have come from Sacramento. So it has shifted the dynamic on how we respond to building and development. I mean, my hope is we can address those things and return to a more long-term look at the city's future.
And how would you have described the city of LA from a planning perspective a year ago, or 10 years ago?
10 years ago, very different dynamic, right?
That's when you were still the city. That's when you were creating all these long-range plans, which, by the way, have finally some of them come to fruition, but yet somehow have been shelved or frankly aren't coming to actuality because of all the forces you just talked about.
Yeah, and I think my perspective is going to be informed by the fact that I worked downtown, I worked on downtown, and I lived downtown. And 10 years ago, Skyline was dotted with cranes, capital was flowing like crazy. We were doing a lot of long-range planning, and I think there was political alignment at that time, community alignment, and excitement about the future of Los Angeles, and certainly downtown in particular. But I think because there was a resurgence and an excitement about the core, I think that had knock-on effects for the rest of the city.
So if you could go back now, if you could stand where you are today and look back at young planner Bryan, working on DTLA 2040, what would you have told yourself then that you now know?
I would have told myself focus less on perfection of the product and focus more on the process that you're involved in. And I would give that advice, I think, to anyone who is involved in the work that we do. So whatever side you sit on, whether you're in the development side, you're a land use attorney, whatever it is, understanding the full process and the full universe in which projects happen from politics to the community side, historic preservation, finance, all those things, makes you a much stronger professional. I think perfection is only as strong as your understanding of the holistic system. And so rather than focusing so hard on that perfect product, really delving into that system, it has knock-on benefits too of broadening your set of your network, which will broaden your worldview, right? We tend to be in a little bit of echo chambers sometimes. And so getting a different perspective can really round you out in a way to help you professionally.
So many different ways I want to take that, but I'm curious, is what you're really saying, figure out how to get it done as opposed to spending 10, 20 years working on a plan that's called down to DTLA 2040, but that, I think the 40 stands for it took 40 years to get there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly that. And I think I'd also tell myself, don't be afraid of getting something out there, knowing that you can tweak it and tailor it. Our systems aren't necessarily set up for that, with CEQA and sometimes the legislative process in a city as large as Los Angeles can be difficult to go back in and tinker. Some other cities do it really well, and I learned that lesson in West Hollywood. Is best to just get something out there and learn from it, and then make your fixes around the edges, rather than waiting forever for perfection, and then you've missed the market moment, or you've missed all these moments because you've worked so hard to get what you think is perfect, but really is no longer.
It's interesting, I'm not telling you something you don't know, which is that the city of LA is going through a tough time. A lot of developers, property owners, investors have kind of redlined the city and said, we're not doing business here anymore. Oftentimes, the capital C city gets blamed. What they're really blaming is the planners, I hate to say it, who they perceive as being the things that are holding things up. But it's a challenge, right? There's been budget cuts. I was on a call with major projects the other day where they told me for the entire city of Los Angeles, there's only 6 planners in all of major projects, which is crazy considering how many projects are going forward. If someone made you planning director for the day, what would you do, to change things and make it a more welcoming environment for developers these days?
Wow. I mean, that's not a job I'd want to have. So credit.
Vince is going to be fine.
Yeah, and all credit due to Vince and anyone who holds that seat in any city. I think it's a very difficult position to be in, especially times like this, when you are constrained. It helps when there's common purpose within a department and within a city. And I don't know if that can address resource limitations. But if everyone knows that they're working towards building a better Los Angeles, and I know there is that sentiment in the planning department certainly, but just reinforcing that aspiration can help, I think, turn the wheels of moving things along.
I like that. So when you contrast the city of LA with the city of West Hollywood, where you spent many years, very different place, very different politics, stakeholders, and focus, right? Mm-hmm. The idea of placemaking, the ideal of signage. I mean, West Hollywood has been very much on the cutting edge for many years, and you were in a large part at the center of that. Maybe tell folks a bit about what you did in West Hollywood and what the results have looked like.
You're giving me too much credit.
I'm giving you a lot of credit.
Happened to be there when the ordinance was passed, and this is the ordinance that enabled large-scale digital advertising on the Sunset Strip. And so my role was to take what had been an aspirational program for many decades, but just couldn't get there. And I think partly the reason was it had sought perfection rather than getting it right enough and knowing that there would be fixes along the way or flexibility built into the program so that it could evolve over time to suit the conditions or, suit the political environment or whatever it was.
So you stepped into this in a very unique time.
Yes.
Signage has been a part of the Sunset Strip and its kind of legacy for many years. And now we're talking about a new typology. You also did it in the middle of a pandemic. Right. I remember both of us sitting at home on Zoom calls, you at your kitchen table, mine at home office, trying to figure this out together. Talk to me about signage as a category, as a use, and its place in the urban fabric. Sometimes I think signage gets a bad rap unnecessarily so. And West Hollywood had a unique spin and frankly has been a leader in looking at how do we do things differently? How do we provide community benefits, both physical and financial? And really has led the charge where a lot of cities are now turning to West Hollywood and saying, or even calling you, hey, Bryan, how do we do this in our city?
Yeah, I think traditionally the relationship is that signage is extractive, that it just extracts value from those who pass by, from the urban form. But what West Hollywood did, which was incredibly unique and incredibly insightful, was it leveraged the value that signage particularly has on the Sunset Strip, which is unrivaled, certainly in California, but it's on par with places like Times Square or in Ginza in Tokyo. And it sought to raise expectations across the board. And so raise expectations on the projects that were being built in terms of design, raise expectations in terms of the partnerships between landowner, sign operator, and city, such that it created a positive feedback cycle of investment in the public realm, which would, in theory, create places that are more valuable for signage to be, and so could justify some higher costs and capital expenses involved in building those signs, and then sort of raise expectation too about what type of advertising would be on there, because it would be such high value and perhaps a non-custom format. Meaning you're not just looking at a typical rectangle, but some unique shapes that would just by necessity have to take a standard advertising format and put it in a new format, or just do something that's custom and bespoke. It also created a opportunity for large-scale public art, unlike it has been done probably anywhere in the country, where there is dedicated time every hour for public art to be displayed on these large
Which we should pause on is a very positive thing and a very cool thing, where you can be driving on Sunset and see the same digital art on 20 boards as you're driving east or west in a way that no one else has ever experienced before.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience. And there's something unique too about the Sunset Strip with its curves and its topography, which just make it a truly visually stunning experience, whether you're just viewing the advertising or if you happen to hit at the right time where you're viewing the public art.
So signage gets a bad rap, especially digital signage. But at the same time, there is a role to play in the signage world. What can other cities take from the West Hollywood experience and apply to their own cities? You've seen Santa Monica, City of LA, other cities, but even nationwide, what should they be grabbing onto? And does it make sense to have digital signage in lots of cities throughout the United States?
I'm sure it's appropriate if, the community decides that it's appropriate, decision makers decide that it's appropriate.
It's a very politically correct answer, my friend.
But also, I think what West Hollywood shows is that you can raise the bar and deliver great results when there is coordination and political alignment, when you have staff on board at the city and staff resources dedicated to make these things happen. It does take a lot of dedicated effort from a lot of folks in the city of West Hollywood to make it happen. And you're right. As you mentioned before, people are calling you. People are still calling me. People call West Hollywood and they ask, how do we get that? And the answer is not so easy. It's not just, copy the ordinance and you're good to go. It does take an ecosystem and dedicated time and resources to make it happen. But it just shows the power of what great things can happen when a city is aligned and understands the value that they're creating.
So I'm going to step on the third rail and suggest, what about signage in the city of LA? There's a long history of signage challenges there. Mm-hmm. You were an urban planner in West Hollywood and the city of LA, and there's a new effort to try to regulate signage that has started up. What do you think specifically the city of LA should be doing if you were back doing long-range planning and looking at signage in the city of LA today?
Yeah, I'd take the lessons from West Hollywood about demanding better design, thoughtful placement of it, public benefits that come along with it, understanding that there is real value that the city is creating by allowing the introduction of digital signs, but feeding that public benefit back into those places. So investing in the public realm, whether it's through parks or streets, so that there is a more harmonious relationship between the public realm and the signs that are being created. And again, it takes the staff resources to carry these things through. And I know there's turnover in terms of people switching roles, which always is an issue within the city of LA. But,
not to mention a council member who went to jail and a couple other things that have happened along the way, but yes.
Right. So the turnover can be difficult, but, if you had a dedicated signage czar and...
Are you looking for a new job? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely not.
I think you've had your time in the signage sun, shall we say.
Yeah. It always finds you though.
It's true. We can't quit.
Yeah.
We can't quit.
Yeah.
So switch to USC. Talk to me a bit about what you're doing there. What does it mean to be in charge of planning from a USC perspective, and how do you draw upon your city experiences, public sector experiences, into the university world?
Very interesting context doing planning and development for USC in terms of the work that goes on at the university, and so what we're facilitating with the development or on the real estate side, whether it's research, which incredible every time I hear about some sort of research that we're helping facilitate on the engineering side, on the medical side, whether it's through our athletics facilities, which have seen a lot of growth with our move to the Big Ten, or in terms of the placemaking that we do. So, we've been around for 150 years at our campus in South Los Angeles, almost that long in Northeast Los Angeles, where the medical school was founded. So we have a longer term outlook and a certain responsibility that we feel for the communities in which we sit, particularly at those edges or where we interface with our communities, where we share space. You see that in things like our researchers looking at the health of our trees, or how we plant the right species in the right places to address some systemic imbalances in infrastructure investments. So our urban tree initiative, or we have our amazing neighborhood academic initiative, which creates pathways to higher education for students who live in the neighborhood. I mean, junior high through high school students that live in the neighborhood, and then how we design our spaces. I just had lunch at the USC Village before coming over here, and it's this incredible urban place that works from day to night. It works for our students, our faculty, and our staff, but it's also a great place where the community comes in, and it's this amazing shared space.
So I'm curious, I think what you're really talking about is USC sits in a very unique locale. It is not a city unto its own. It sits within not an as affluent community. Right. It is subject to the city of LA rules and regulations. It's not like, for instance, a public university like UCLA that makes its own rules. Right. And so as a result, there is a different relationship between town gown relationships, if you will, but also literally block by block, because even though USC, the main campus is pretty contained, most of your students, for instance, live in apartments and homes that are really surrounded by the fabric of the city. And kind of when you're coming out from a planning perspective, how do you look at those challenges and opportunities being in an urban environment?
Yeah, it's those edges are where it really matters, or where we blend into the community. And so there are pressures there, or tensions there, I think, in that town gown interface there. Going back, we see ourselves as steward of those communities, and we, thankfully this is not my job, have dialogues and relationships that
you would do a good job.
And I do it, and I get involved certainly. But we have a great team that handles our community relations, or the relationship between community or government and the university, and they do a phenomenal job.
Give Sam Garrison a shout out.
Sam Garrison and his team do an incredible job at maintaining those relationships, and we work in close collaboration with them, and so we're seeking to be a good neighbor with those communities in which we sit. There are some of the pressures that every community is facing in Los Angeles are faced there, and sometimes as the big thing nearby, it's questioned what sort of influence we have on those dynamics, whether that's growth and development in neighborhoods and students that live there. Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah.
It's okay. I'm here to ask you tough questions. It's fine. USC has gone through a lot of changes recently. A new president,
Right.
Some things in the headlines perhaps as well. And you have a new president who is looking at what does the future of USC look like? What does the future of education look like? The future of the built form versus online versus at home. What are the things that you're focused on from a planning, long-range term planning and real estate perspective that will influence or be responsive to those future plans for USC into moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly space constrained with our campuses. And so our focus at the moment is looking at how we utilize our space as efficiently as possible. We're also, coming out of a little bit of it's no secret, a financially difficult moment where we're trying to return to a more solvent position. And those things together make us take a hard look at how we use space.
Hard to build when you don't have a lot of money.
It's hard to build when you don't have a lot of money, certainly. But, there's opportunity for us to just do better with the existing space that we have. And so, we've been taking a hard look at the leases that we have around the city, because we are both landlord and we are both tenant. Mm-hmm. And taking a look at work modalities and how we can, be as cost conscious as possible.
Are you all doing some future planning, some long range planning, some master planning about what the future might look like? And how does that differ from the way the UOC operates today?
We're not currently engaged in long range or master planning at the moment. It is, we've got.
I'm not trying to break any news here. I'm just curious what it looks
I know.
like.
Unfortunately, we're not. We have two plans in place that govern our two main campuses, and the one at the University Park campus in South Los Angeles, we're 10 years into that plan. We have a development agreement with the city of Los Angeles. We've got an amazing amount of development capacity within that plan, and things are working well. So, we're a decade into a multi-decade plan, and we continue to build it out as things shift at the university and as our needs change. Thankfully, it is flexible enough for us to easily accommodate whatever it is that we need to do. The plan at the health science campus is a little older. I think could use some refurbishing. To address that campus as far as facilitating growth into the future, addressing access to the campus and then circulation within, and providing amenities there, which have traditionally not been as robust as they have been in the South LA campus.
There seems to be a trend of institutions, universities in particular, expanding beyond their current reach. And obviously you serve people all over, but UCLA buying a facility down in Rancho Palos Verdes, or University of Arizona expanding into the city of LA, or others. I'm curious, you don't have to break any news, although by all means do. Does USC have plans to kind of expand greater beyond its bounds, and how do you all think about what that looks like in the future?
No, I don't think there are any current plans to, expand beyond what we have.
But do you feel the pressure from other universities who are coming into, quote unquote, your territory as well? And what does that look like?
No, I mean, we're happy to share our spaces with other institutes of higher education. That's one of the great things about Los Angeles, is just the rich amount of universities and institutions of higher learning is, there's plenty to go around.
It is a great place. I didn't go there. My brother did. My mother did. You have something big happening in your backyard in a couple of years here, the Olympics.
Yeah.
What are you planning on? How are you interfacing with the Olympic Committee. I may or may not have just bought some tickets for way too much money online.
You didn't get the
at
$28 tickets?
I don't think those $28 tickets exist, my friend.
Marketing.
Exactly. What is going to be happening on and around the USC campus, and how are you all planning for that?
Yeah, funny. We just had a tabletop exercise today when we were, unearthing all the potential issues and thinking through all the coordination that needs to go on for the Olympics. So the Coliseum will play a major role.
So we're going to be track and field, correct?
Yeah,
and the opening ceremonies and closing as well?
They will be there. We've got the Galen Center, which is typically hosts our basketball games. That'll be a major event space. And the campus itself at the USC Village will host all the media. So you've got 2,500 beds there. The media will be hosted there, and then there will be a very large security perimeter around the campus, and to access those spaces and events. Some of the facilities on our campus will host training and practice facilities for the athletes, and so we're doing close coordination with LA28. It feels like a lot because right now we've kind of just we're looking at all the pieces and what might be happening and all the logistics that need to go into it. But I couldn't be more excited about the opportunity to host the games. And
is that because you get free tickets? You don't have to pay
believe it or not, we don't.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. But don't you have to be there to coordinate the planning on site? It's
we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Well, that is very exciting. I would be remiss if I didn't sit with a planner and talk about AI. Everyone's talking about it. So dive into it a little bit with me. How are you, to what extent are you using AI in your planning activities day to day? And how is the USC real estate and planning world being impacted by AI?
Yeah, it's early days, at least for our team using AI, and I'm part of an AI committee that's exploring, how we should use it from a real estate or a facilities point of view. What universities are doing and what we're likely to do into the future is create a digital twin of our campus, meaning we just do a physical digital model, and so that we can do scenario planning, we can do space planning to look at how we can more efficiently use our buildings, how we can respond to the modernization or the renewal of our assets. And so I think it's going to be really powerful in that regard.
But today it's not taking over your job. We're not going to be able to outsource everything. It's going to be still based upon the kind of your knowledge, your experience, and relationships.
Yeah, what I think, where I feel comfort is I don't think AI can take the place of sound judgment. It can create a lot of great information. It can create a lot of information too that may not be necessarily so great. And so being able to have the judgment to discern between, a lot of information and great information, and how do you use that, and how do you make decisions around that, I don't, if that's replaceable, at least not within the scope of, where AI is headed.
The one thing it does kind of replace, I hate to tell you, is those almanacs. Kids your age, kids, little Bryans who are, 3 and 4 and 5 years old probably don't have an almanac at home.
No.
They probably just say, "Hey Google, what's exactly?"
Exactly. Yeah. And it's great for iterating projects and showing what's possible really quickly. And I'm every day there's it advances, and I'm amazed at what it can do. And so I think there's a lot of shortcuts that we can find in the processes that are slowing us down or making us frustrated along the way. Can find conflicts, could review building plans, I'm sure not before too long. So there's a lot of great potential there for showing what a project might be, showing visioning. But some darker sides that could potentially happen with AI. One thing, going back to the planner and how I think about it, is we have a responsibility to design our cities and our public spaces so that they can be a counterbalance to the pull of a digital life or synthetic life that AI may be dragging us towards. Right? Already, social media is competing for our time, and I think our cities and our public spaces need to compete just as hard. And I think that will only accelerate with AI.
So I think a clip of this will probably end up on LinkedIn or social media in some way or fashion. But drill down on that for me. What do you mean that social media is kind of dragging us down and that we need to be investing in our physical spaces more?
Well, I think there's just competition for our attention. And we have a choice of how we spend our time. We could spend our time, on social media, or we could spend our time in great public spaces. But if cities aren't delivering those public spaces, I think a city should feel the onus of delivering great places and competing for attention, competing for our love, and how we spend our time. I think that will solve some of the issues that we're facing right now as a city.
That's a really refreshing statement to hear you make. I worry that unfortunately too much of city planning time is spent on just creating and accomplishing a task rather than as opposed to thinking big and thinking about what's possible. Yeah. All these initiatives, for instance, about building more housing. Great, we need more housing, but not thinking about what's the surrounding area around the housing. Or, we've talked many times about mixed use housing. Fantastic. We would all love for ground floor retail, but it only makes sense in certain locations. So I like what you're talking about of taking a step back and thinking, this is the long range planner on you, thinking about how do we do that. But I struggle with it. I struggle with how do we make those decisions and how do we then implement them? That's a lot easier said than done. Again, we're going to make you planning director for the day. How would you do it?
I mean, I would, dedicate our planning resources. I know we're resource constrained, but, to our long range planning efforts, find ways to get those plans done more quickly. Also, I think at the state level, we've done a great job at accelerating housing and really focusing on that and putting ordinances in place that have removed a lot of the roadblocks to getting things done. But we haven't, in their place, supplemented or done an equivalent with long-range planning. We haven't addressed that there are...
Can you back up for one second? What is, when people, I know what it means, but what is the difference between long-range planning and just planning?
Well, I think long-range planning is the development of a plan for an area, a street, a city that sets a vision for the future.
As opposed to a specific project planning for that one building, that multifamily building, that office building. You're talking about how do they all fit together in one plan?
Exactly. So setting the vision and then setting the regulatory framework in place to facilitate that to the future. And then when you talk about planning, either as the department or it's sort of the implementation of that plan is what happens at the micro level or the project level.
So you're a planner.
I am.
I know you're married to a planner.
I am. Two-planner household, yes.
Two-planner household. I love it. But I worry sometimes about the future planner. The people who are coming up through the ranks right now or in college and thinking about going into a world of planning, because what I see right now is a big gap between very senior planners who know it and have seen it all, and the people who have really no planning experience whatsoever, but are now being thrust into being in charge of mass developments. So what would you advise young people, folks in high school, folks in college, folks coming out of planning school in pursuing a career in planning?
Yeah, and I know there's also, I think that the changes in state legislation too have shifted the focus in many planning departments to the sort of carousel of new bills and implementing those new bills, interpreting those new bills, and then you kind of wait for the next round the next year.
It's a tough time. Budgets are smaller. There's less positions. There's less, frankly, mentorship opportunities because the planners who really do know what they're doing are spread way too thin. It's challenging.
You're going
to tell them to be a lawyer? Is that what you're going to tell them?
No, I wouldn't tell
them
to do that.
Be a
doctor? Yeah. So what I would suggest is look for your opportunity, knowing your strengths, wherever you land, whether it's with a firm, in the planning department and those things, is to find your right opportunity to go 110% and take ownership of something. a lot of times we give the advice to just sort of grind at first and really learn everything, but you risk, either burning out or missing that great opportunity where you can really dedicate your resources. So when you find that thing to take ownership over, just run with it and make it yours. You'll be indispensable. And then going back to what I talked about earlier, build your network and build it from just different voices. Get out of your own echo chamber. A planning department can be its own echo chamber. And then the third piece is to focus on your communication skills, whether that's storytelling, whether that is through public speaking, it's how you write. I think if you put those things all together, I think it gives you a lot of superpowers.
I know we're both Angelinos. We both want to see the city continue to grow despite a challenging time. What are some things that you are seeing, some green shoots, some things that you're excited about for the future of LA?
We're certainly maturing as a city. We were in that expansion mode 10 years ago. Now I think it's more of a maturation or finding our footing again. Driving by here, we see, work that's anticipating the arrival of the D line. It's very exciting to have the connection.
Have a metro, that'd be huge.
Have a metro, that will be huge. Very encouraged by the extension of the K line that, will be going through the heart of the city, and having a true northwest or north-south connection through the heart of the city is really encouraging. And also, I think going back to the Olympics, great time to have the spotlight on Los Angeles. And we've had it as this benchmark for so long, or as this time horizon. And I'm wildly excited about the Olympics, but I'm also excited about what happens after. I think we'll feel, we'll breathe a sigh of relief when the games are done. We'll probably, feel nostalgic and sad that it's over. But I think then we can, as a city, have a little longer term horizon. We can start to look at 2040, 2045, 2050, and ask ourselves what kind of city we want to become.
Spoken like a true long-range planner. I love it. It's a perfect note to end on. Bryan, really appreciate you making the time. Thanks for joining the Real Smart Podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, fun to be here.
The content of this podcast is for the general informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship between you, the host, guest, or Alan Matkins. You should not act or rely on any information discussed without first consulting a qualified attorney regarding your specific situation. Any opinions expressed are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views of Alan Matkins or its clients.